Test on one day. India, England, Australia. What a player, what a player, what a player.
Welcome back, everybody, to Waadaplaya Concussion Sub Series. This is a special one for all of you. We have a special guest back on our show who was with us back in February when West Indies were touring Bangladesh. Machel from Carib Cricket. Welcome, Mash. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, guys. Absolute pleasure to be back on. You know, love your content, love what you guys do. When you hit me up and invited me back, you know, we were just I wasn't hesitating to try and make a date work and make a time work.
Excellent. We love it. And plus, West Indies cricket has changed quite a lot coming from earlier in the year, similar to India transition, because in Australia, when India was touring, we were injury hit and our bench strength was tested. And in Feb, when we spoke to you, senior players backed out of Windies tour, and you know, very, very youngsters were going to Bangladesh, and they pulled off a fantastic Test series victory over there. So, how's been the journey so far? How do you feel about West Indies cricket now versus start of the year?
I think when we get to the end of 2021. I've got a very strong feeling that people are going to look at Bangladesh as a turning point. Sounds like too big a statement to make, but they're going to call it a turning point simply because if those senior players hadn't pulled out of Bangladesh, and if we hadn't been forced to blood players who had done well domestically, but for whatever reason we thought there was a bit of a closed shop almost certainly to our Test side. If all of that hadn't happened, we wouldn't be in the situation we are now. Now, I'm not going to say to you that things are perfect. I mean, as I speak to you now, we've just come off the back of a fairly humbling Test series defeat to South Africa. But if you take it across the piece, and I'm going to talk purely on Test cricket first and foremost, if you take it across the piece, a win in Bangladesh, 2-0 series win, which we haven't done. We haven't won in Bangladesh in a long, long time. A draw at home against, admittedly, what isn't the strongest Sri Lanka side, but the point is we didn't lose. And then obviously South Africa have kind of shown us we've got a bit of a way to go yet. But over the piece, I think you have to take that as a positive. We've seen Carl Mayers enter the Test arena. Nkrumah Bonner has entered the Test arena. Josh De Silva has entered the Test arena. And I think that knowing if the only lesson we've learned from all of this is that we have got some bench strength, or if the only lesson that we've learned is that we should look at domestic cricket and see who is doing something and call them into the team, then that's all good for me. So would I say signs are positive? I don't know if I'm going to go 100% and say, oh, it's all 100% positive. But if you look at 2021 as a whole, and if I include all formats now, ODIs, T20s and Test cricket, I would argue that West Indies had, and we're talking about the men's team obviously, has not been this strong in a long while.
Yeah, excellent, Machel. So you already mentioned about the players emerging out of that series, and a lot of players coming in and making a mark, right? So, but that I think the West Indies squad depth has also increased. Do you think, like England and now India, however they have done, do you think England can also field two sides like how these two are doing? Like how the West Indies can also do the same? I think they have a tremendous depth, isn't it? Right. So I think West Indies can also do it. So,
do you know what? I'm not as confident as you. Could we field two sides? Yes, we could. But that second side. Okay, do you know what? No. Here's what I would say. We could field two sides, and arguably the second side would be as strong as our current first team, but that doesn't mean that they would be able to compete against the better teams, if that makes any sense. So we could field a second side, and I would expect them to compete against Sri Lanka at home. I would expect them to go to Bangladesh and try and compete. So yes, arguably in that sense, we could field two sides, but I would hesitate before saying that we've got good depth. What I would say is that we just have depth now. I would question how strong it is, but the point is we now have a pool of players to select from, and what I think I'd say more importantly is now nobody's position is guaranteed. So really, when you look at the West Indies Test side, for example, the only players you can look at and go, you are definitely going to play no matter what. Jason Holder. Actually, that's it. So when you look at our Test team, only Jason Holder is guaranteed a spot. But to be honest, that's how it should be, because the only way you increase, the only way you improve, I should say, performance is by every single player feeling that their position is under threat. And actually, I probably should throw Craig Brathwaite in there because he's the captain. But every player should feel that they're under threat in some shape or form, and that's how you improve squad quality.
I would like to add Roach and Gabriel also to the list. I think there's no one to replace them. They have been doing pretty well over the long time as well, in the fast bowling department at least. Yeah,
do you know what? I was going to add them. The only reason I didn't is because there's some conditions where you might not play a Kemar Roach. But you're right. Your point's right. Yeah, Roach and Gabriel as well.
If you look at the T20 side, West Indies have got very good experience in the form of Gayle. Bravo coming in at the age of 39, and he has even mentioned that he's ready to play the 2028 World Cup or something. So he had tweeted something like that. And even DRE Russ coming back and performing, and him bowling is also a very good sign. But only missing sign is Narine here. He has mentioned that he is not yet ready to play in the international circuit, and he is still working on the action. But good signs for West Indies that they have the experience of these players, and if Narine is added, it would be a very good thing. What are your thoughts on this?
We almost in the Caribbean I don't think we value our experienced players. I really don't. And I'm really intrigued when this comes out and people who watch it, I'm really intrigued to see how they respond to that statement. If you speak to an IPL fan and you say, talk to me about Chris Gayle, DJ Bravo, Sunil Narine, DRE Russ, 9 out of every 10 IPL fans are saying how brilliant they are, and would question anybody who would think that they're surplus to requirements, right? Now, the reason I start with IPL is, let's all admit that when it comes to T20 cricket, IPL is the standard. Not international cricket, IPL is the standard. That's the highest quality of T20 cricket, right? And I think everyone should know that. If you watch T20 cricket, everyone knows that, right? We have some of the most experienced players who walk into IPL franchise teams season after season after season. And yet in the Caribbean, we question whether they should play for the West Indies. And it makes no sense to me. When you're going to a World Cup, you need to take experience. You can't win a T20 World Cup with just exceptional, talented youngsters. You need players who have been there, done that. Those 4 names you've got on the screen, and if I add Pollard in, just for argument's sake, right? You take those 5. When you add up how many T20 games they have played in their career, that level of experience is in every side in international cricket wants that experience, because those 5 players have played pretty much every single T20 scenario there is to play, and that is invaluable. So when there's been question marks about, are we going to take 42-year-old Chris Gayle by the time the World Cup comes? Are we going to take him to the World Cup? Yes, we are, because his level of experience in the changing room cannot be matched by any other player. And it was interesting during our series against South Africa and then Australia, Chris Gayle came out and said how glad he was to hear from Pollard, and Pollard came out openly in the press and said we are 100% behind Chris Gayle, and I think Bravo said it, and he said, Bravo himself said that Gayle has done it all. Everybody in the dressing room looks up to him, and I think sometimes we forget that cricket isn't just played on the field. It's also played in the dressing room with the level of experience your players have in helping the youngsters like a Pooran, and the Shimron Hetmeyers, who we know can potentially win games for us on their own, but they don't have the level of experience that our top five, the people you've got on the screen have. And if I focus specifically on Sunil Narine, I've been saying all along that I think West Indies are going to win the World Cup. And I think whoever beats us in the T20 World Cup is probably the team that's going to win the T20 World Cup, right? But what I would say, and the only question mark I've got, we are a significantly stronger side if Sunil Narine is involved. Now, if we go to the World Cup without Sunil, I'm not saying we won't win, but even now, Sunil Narine is no longer at his peak. He's no longer at his IPL peak where he could pinch hit at the top and do amazing things and also bowl and do amazing things. But where Sunil Narine currently is in his career is teams still respect him. They still, when they see him come on, they see his 4 overs and they take the attitude of, we've got to play Narine out. Even though he's not at his strength anymore, teams still respect him like that. Now, no team, in my mind, can afford to go to World Cup without a player like Narine, who you can basically guarantee his 4 overs are going to go under 7 runs per over. And every team wants a player. Every team wants a player like that. It doesn't really matter if he takes wickets or not. That's 4 overs where you know that nothing's happening for the opposition. What I am hoping is that Sunil will declare himself available at the last minute, because he will play CPL, and if Sunil plays CPL, it doesn't actually matter if he doesn't play against Pakistan or Australia or South Africa. If he plays CPL, then that's him showing the selectors, I am ready in some shape or form. What we all assume, though, is that Sunil is afraid of being called in an international tournament. I know, obviously, IPL, there were concerns about his actions, and obviously IPL's returning shortly, and there were a few concerns raised about his action, I should say. But I am assuming that Sunil is going to make himself available, and if he does, he has to go to the World Cup. There should be no discussion about it. He should just walk straight into the team.
Yeah, in addition to all these experienced players, I think a few younger players are also coming up and doing pretty well. Someone like a Fabian Allen,
yes,
Jason Mohammed, Nicholas Pooran, Jason Mohammed, even Evan Lewis coming back to form. These are actually very good signs for West Indies cricket. And like coupled with the experience of these players we just talked about, I think it is good. West Indies cricket is in safe hands.
Yes,
I was going to say Fabian Allen and Hayden Walsh Jr. come close to Sunil Narine. Even if Sunil doesn't go to World Cup much, I think those two should be complementary players. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. So I think if Sunil doesn't go, there are 2 spinners. They are very good players, and I think it's good to see Hayden Walsh find his confidence again. I think we're seeing now with what's happening versus Australia that this is a player who has found his 2019 form from CPL. And if Hayden goes to the World Cup with this form and confidence, then brilliant. But I would just feel a tad more confident if it was Hayden and Sunil, as opposed to Hayden and Fabian only. But as you say, that's not to discount what Fabian can do alongside Hayden Walsh Jr.
But Fabian Allen batting also has been pretty impressive. So that's something we cannot discount. One more, Akil Hossain also, who's been doing pretty well as well.
He in the ODI team, he arguably you could there's an argument to say that he's our number 1 spinner right now in terms of ODI cricket. Yet to make the transition to T20, I think there's still some question marks about him re T20 cricket, and maybe it's that they'll have to focus on the ODI arena for now. But I think we have to wait and see what happens in CPL. I think there'll be a lot of keen eyes on who are the players who perform in CPL this year, because there may still be 1 or 2 people who might force their way into the World Cup squad at the last minute.
So going into the captaincy part of it, so West Indies seem to have quite a few captains. Holder was the captain, and then after the Bangladesh series, I think it was good that Brathwaite was made the captain. He was rewarded justly for what they had done. So, and again, Pollard seems to be doing a good job. Even Nicholas Pooran, who was kind of a makeshift captain because Pollard was injured, he did a pretty good job. Do you think those are very good choices for West Indies as captains? I think Nicholas Pooran did a pretty good job, even though his batting form seems to be a little bit of concern. But his captaincy seemed to be pretty impressive.
Yeah. So if we deal with Craig first, as you said, Craig deserved. So I was always of the opinion, and I'd written about it at length, I'd spoken about it at length. I was always of the opinion that Jason's time was coming to an end anyway. Whether it would have come to an end if what happened in Bangladesh hadn't happened, Jason may still be captain now. I felt that we needed to call time, and I felt that Jason would benefit from no longer being captain. But obviously what happened in Bangladesh happened, and now Craig is captain. I've got no problem with that whatsoever. The players respond to his captaincy. Yes, what happened against South Africa happened, but that I wouldn't say that was down to poor captaincy. We were just outplayed. And too many players didn't show up on an with the bat on an individual level. So yeah, no issues there where Craig Brathwaite is concerned. Now in the ODIs and T20s, and another name I'd just throw into the mix there is Shai Hope. Now the reason why I'm going to throw Hope into the mix is Hope is the vice captain of the ODI team, and the reason why that's significant is that when Pollard was chosen to captain the white ball teams, the thing that many people missed at his unveiling when Jimmy Adams was alongside him, and what they said was, because they knew that it was going to cause controversy when Pollard was made captain because of Pollard being seen wrongly in some quarters as being somebody who had been a mercenary in West Indies cricket, or whatever. When Pollard took the captaincy, they stressed that part of Pollard's remit was to groom new captains in the region. And it was interesting that immediately they named Pooran vice captain in T20 cricket and Hope vice captain in ODI cricket, because essentially now we know what our future is. Pollard is there to ensure that when he steps aside, because remember, he is 34 years old, so by the time we get to the 2023 World Cup, you'd assume that he's going to retire from international cricket shortly after that. And when he steps down, we now know what happens next. Pooran will step up, and that's why it was brilliant. Perversely, it was brilliant to see Pollard not play any of the Australian T20s, because you can't see what Pooran or Hope are about without him stepping aside. And credit to Pooran, at no point did you realise in that series that Pollard wasn't the captain. If you see what I mean, Pooran quietly got on with his business. So similarly, I look forward to an ODI series where maybe Pollard sits out a game, so Shai Hope can lead an ODI here or there. And let's make a link to Kohli for India, for example. Highly successful captain, but you always want to see what happens if they're not about. Who have we got waiting in the wings? We know as West Indians that Pollard's a brilliant captain, but he can't play forever. So you've always got to have an eye on the future as to who comes next when your talisman and your charismatic captain steps aside. So I'm glad that we're prepping the Pooran and we're prepping a Hope for the future.
It actually played well, Pollard sitting out of the Aussie series for Pooran, because if you look at his performance in itself, he stepped up. He took a lot more responsibility. He's not getting out to those less than 10 ball kind of an innings. He's playing through. Yesterday's was classic. He took the team through, even though slight shimmer in the end with Holder getting out, but seeing the team through. I think that gave Pooran also a lot more responsibility to feel that he should be the leader. So I think good on Pollard's leadership to take that step.
Yeah, 100% agree. 100%.
And again, Shai Hope, somehow he amazes me. He does pretty well in the limited overs. He averages around 53 in ODIs. Doesn't play the T20s, but somehow he doesn't carry that form into the test matches. He is actually a very class player to be looked upon. Has only 200s, I guess, in the test circuit, and he averages in the mid-20s. So what's going wrong with him, dude?
If I had that answer, he would be ringing me now, telling me to fly to Barbados right now and explain to him what's going wrong. But if I could hazard a guess, So he made a return to the team for the South Africa series, and he did score 140 odd. But if I could hazard a guess at what's going wrong for Shay, the problem is everybody's now saying the same thing. Why can't he translate from ODIs to Test? Why can't he translate? Why can't he translate? I have to assume that eventually it's going to click one day. But I just wonder for him if there is pressure in his own head when he goes out to bat in Test cricket that I've got to produce. And that's the only thing I could say at this point, because it can't be that he doesn't have the technical ability to do it, because we can all see it clearly with our own eyes. And yes, I know that ODI cricket is different, and the white ball, it's different. It only swings initially and so on and so forth. But you can't be that good and only average in the 20s in Test cricket. So I hope that eventually it's going to click for him. But I think probably he mentally has to free himself to just be able to play whatever he feels is his natural game in red ball cricket.
Yeah, we also feel he's too good a cricketer to fail continuously. It's time that he actually comes good and does well for the West Indies. So moving on, the CPL is also coming in. So this, and even West Indies are the only team who are playing a lot of T20Is moving into the World Cup. They're playing the most matches, I think, across all international teams. They're playing 15 matches. I think it's a very good preparation for the World Cup, and they have the CPL also at the right time. We believe that this could be a great thing for West Indies cricket, so that they can build. They've already built their squad, but I think it will help them increase the depth. And because now all teams are going with a 25 or 26 member squads due to all this COVID, I think they can look at those extra members, whomever they want to pick, and go with an extra squad.
So the 18 man squad they announced at the start of the summer to play against South Africa, Australia, and then Pakistan. Even this week, Johnny Grave, CEO of West Indies Cricket, was saying that's the squad. That's pretty much the World Cup squad. And Phil Simmons said recently in a press conference that they're going to, after this set of 15 games are done, they're going to look to work out what's their 15. So the 15 are coming from the 18. Now, the reason why I say that is that tells you that there's not actually that many places available in CPL. But as you rightly point out, we're allowed to take a bigger squad to the World Cup. So what I would say to players in the Caribbean is that just because we've announced an 18-man squad and pretty much said that that's where we're going to pick our team from, anybody who has an exceptional CPL must go as part of the extended World Cup squad. So nobody should go into this year's CPL feeling like it's a close shop to get into the West Indies T20 squad. It might be a close shop, however, to get into the West Indies T20 team. The only player I genuinely believe, and we spoke about him earlier, the only player outside of this squad who could still make their way into the starting 11 is Sunil Narine. Because when you break it down, I'm going to just throw out a random starting 11. This isn't my starting 11. I'll just throw out a random one, right? Lewis, Gayle, Hetmeyer, Pooran, Pollard, Russell. Allen, Bravo. That's 9. Narine, McCoy. That's a random team, right? Just saying that, and I didn't even mention Jason Holder because he might not even make the side. I hope people understand why I say the 11. That's a closed shop because some of those players, your Purans, your Pollards, the Russell, Fabian Allen, no one's getting in front of them. It doesn't matter what you do in CPL. You're not going to play in front of them at the World Cup. No one's playing in front of Evan Lewis, no matter what you do in CPL. So certain DJ Bravo, no one's playing in front of him. So certain positions are full. But like I say, have a strong CPL, get in the extended squad. But do you know what? The final thing I would say is, and yes, the 15 games, brilliant prep, CPL, good prep. But actually, what's more important to me, and I've said this for a while now, is IPL. And let me tell you why. IPL's in UAE, World Cup's there. So actually, our big players who play in the IPL, I want them to have a strong IPL, because whoever has a strong IPL is going immediately into the World Cup with form. So I'm looking specifically at Pollard, at DRE Russ, at Narine, at Gayle, at Puran, at Hetmeyer, Holder, etc. I'm hoping that they have a strong finish to IPL, because if that happens, then West Indies 100% are favourites to the World Cup. If those players go into the World Cup and they're already in good form, then I think everyone should just cash out now and say West Indies will win it.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you mentioned a very valid point that the IPL is happening in UAE, and since the World Cup is also in the UAE, it will be a good preparation. And I think it will also encourage all the teams to send their overseas players into the IPL so that they can get good preparation. I think Australia and England were a little hesitant. I think now they will also think about it. Since both the tournaments are in IPL, they will now all the teams will be looking at it and try to make most advantage out of it.
Yeah, it's between us or India. I know England fans think that they've got a chance, but it's between us or India.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Machel. It would be great if we both clash in the finals, and it's a pretty good match. So going into the next series, the Pakistan series, I think it will be a keenly fought series. Pakistan did pretty well in England, though they didn't win both. And Pakistan look a very strong T20 side as well. I think they've got the right kind of balance, and I think this will be a keen fought series. So what are your expectations from this series?
The T20s I'm actually not as bothered about. If we win them, we win them. If we lose them, we lose them. Because I expect us to be tweaking during those T20s to just work out a few more combinations and to see what is or isn't working. And maybe by the final two T20s versus Pakistan, they might play what they think is their starting team, possibly, in the World Cup. So if we win, we win. If we lose, we lose, as long as they're getting their prep in and they're seeing what does and doesn't work. Now, what I am concerned about with Pakistan is the Test series. Having been humbled by South Africa, I just think that I can write off the South Africa defeat and say, well, that was a reality check, and yes, we were good in Bangladesh. Yes, Sri Lanka, there were positive signs. South Africa hit us with a reality check, which is fine if you learn the lessons from that and apply them to the next series. Now, here it is. The next series is upon us. It's Pakistan, who also have good pace bowlers. The pace bowlers found us out when South Africa's pace unit found us out. I just want to see that we learnt from that. It will be very disappointing if we go on to lose the Test series against Pakistan in the exact same manner that we lost the Test series versus South Africa. So I'm not saying we have to beat Pakistan, but I am saying that I need to have seen lessons learned from the defeat against South Africa. So the Test series is far more important to me. And remember, that's also part of the Test Championship. So it's far more important to me to see what happens. And I think there's so many question marks about who's going to play in the Test side, etc. as well. So that Test series is going to be quite the watch. It's going to be quite interesting to see who's playing and how we shape up.
So there are 4 T20Is and 2 Tests which are actually going on. So what are your predictions for that series?
Do you know what? I don't care if anybody plays this back to me. We're going to win the T20s 4-0. and we're going to win the Test 2-0.
It's not bad.
Not a bad prediction, Machel. Hope that happens. And West Indies, I think West Indies are a strong T20 side. But as you said, right, I think they need to improve a little bit in the Test department. So honestly, so I think if they do well, we all will be happy. They're an exciting side, actually. So we all would be happy for West Indies cricket doing well.
Do you know what? Actually, let me just take that back, just in case people come back to me and say, "What did you say?" So my realistic one, T20 is 2-2. And the test, my heart says 1-1. My head says we'll lose 1-0, and maybe the other one will be a draw.
T20s, I think it will be 3-1 West Indies. I would think so, because Windies at home, T20, like we spoke all throughout the show, unbeatable. But test matches will probably be closely contested. So time will tell.
One more thing which I wanted to ask you, Machel. I think it would be an interesting one. Now, Gayle is batting at 3. Do you think he's right foot at number 3, or should he open?
Do you know what? That's such a good question. Let me. Before I answer that, let me put this on you. I want to see what you say. Right? Chris Gayle for Punjab is batting at 3. Do you think he should bat at 3 for Punjab, or should he be opening?
It was good, Marshall.